unless I ran.
Oh, even if I write it, I'm gonna forget.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. I can see her. Don't worry about it.
Can you
I
see?
can move sideways or,
Is it
that's
if I
fine.
sit? Okay. Sit sideways. Okay.
I don't like that one. There you go.
So we're gonna get started. Thanks for coming. We're gonna talk specifically about traveling to Guatemala. Some of you have heard places before about being,
I just want to know, that's okay.
It's on.
I've talked in church before about some of our trips, but this is specifically about being part of the travel delegation and what that looks like. So a little history or background on our partnership. The St. Paul Area Synod is in relationship with Iglesia Luterana Agustina de Guatemala. A long name, we refer to it by its initials of ILAG, I-L-A-G. ILAG is the Lutheran Synod in Guatemala. ILAG serves 17 congregations and also operates an elementary school and a small residential school for teenage girls in Guatemala City. Several congregations here in Minnesota have partnerships with congregations in Guatemala. Grace has been in a partnership with Mensajero de Cristo, a congregation in rural Santa Elena, since 2012. Part of our commitment to them is that we travel to visit every 18 to 24 months.
So often people think of a mission trip as going to help build housing or dig wells or work in an orphanage. This trip is a little different. It's about building community. Central to the relationship between congregations is the value of accompaniment, and we call that walking together. We go to serve and to be served, to strengthen our faith and support our partners in their faith journey. In addition to building relationships with the ELOG staff and Mensajero de Cristo members, we build community also with our fellow travelers. A trip like this will develop relationships that last well beyond the travel time.
We have a slideshow and we'll go through and kind of give you some explanations, and this is just a view of what the trip looks like.
Well, they are nice slides, yeah.
There you go. Or just use the mouse.
So obviously this is at the airport. It's very early in the morning. It's roughly a 7-hour trip, including the layover. And we generally leave about 6 a.m. No, earlier than that.
Well, we get to the airport about 4 a.m. and the flight's at 6.
Yes. And then we arrive at 1 p.m. And Guatemala, by the way, is in that same time zone as we
They don't
are.
go on daylight.
What's that?
They don't go on daylight.
They don't do daylight savings time,
So
so
that
Oh,
starting daylight
okay.
I don't know
savings
if
time is.
daylight is
yeah.
option or not.
March it wouldn't
I
have
did not
changed,
know
yeah.
or remember that. So,
because we went
to November. Okay.
When we went, it was during daylight savings time, yeah.
So here's a little hard to see on this map, but just to give an idea, we fly into Guatemala City, and that is where ELOG has their headquarters. I'll say the Lutheran Center is in Guatemala City. And then from there, we're going to travel on a bus to Santa Elena, which is very close to the Mexican border. We travel north to Santa Elena, and then later on in the week, we'll travel elsewhere in the country, depending on what the group decides to do.
And that bus ride is a full day, right? It's a long
It
one.
is.
Okay.
It is.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. If it were here, you'd think, oh, a couple of hours there, not so
like
much.
right here to Duluth or something like that, you know.
In a different traveling. Yeah.
And it's been an overnight too, no interstate.
So when we first get to Guatemala City, we stay the first night at the Lutheran Center. So it's a complex that has a small chapel, offices for the staff. There's dorm rooms and whatnot. We land in Guatemala City, we have lunch, we exchange money, and then here we are at the Lutheran Center for the night.
So this is the way over, headed to Santa Elena, so it's not all ride. We do have some rest stops, and we go in a small bus, a red bus, so we look for that when we get off from the airport. And then we break on the road for, during that 10 to 11 hours. So that's about how long it takes to get there, about 10 or 11 hours. And this is an ice cream shop. What was the name of it? Saritas, where we stopped for ice cream.
Yeah, we'll stop, like we said, it's a long ride on the bus, but we'll stop several times along the way for a break, for something to eat, to stretch our legs.
Use a bathroom.
I will say one thing, if you wanna learn some Spanish, learn the types of ice cream, because the young lady there did not speak English, and Kathy was the only one who could tell us what the flavors were. So practice on your ice cream flavors if you wanna know something.
But some you don't even know.
So here we had some construction delays along the way, that's not uncommon, so that adds to the trip, right? But that first night on the road, so the first night we're at the Lutheran Center, now we're on the bus, and end of day 2, we generally stay at this lovely motel in a city called Chisec. We're about a couple hours still from Santa Elena at this point.
The grounds are absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So here we get to Santa Elena on day 3, about mid-morning, and that's about, like you were saying, 2.5 hours from Chisec. And when we get there, the people are there waiting, and it's absolutely lovely.
This is obviously a couple of different trips, but always they have some kind of a celebration to welcome us.
So this was the celebration, or the welcome on our last trip to Mensajero de Cristo. The kids put together a little dance. They made the hats in the Sunday school.
The girl on the right trying to keep up with her partner is just hilarious.
I think they were the little girl behind.
These kids had practiced for weeks before we got there. They had this dance, they had another dance, they had a song for us. It was fun.
Are you the only church that visits, or do other churches visit?
Santa Elena, this particular town, this is our congregation, so we're the only
So nobody
ones
else comes?
that- No, though there are other special people that come, if they're working on composting or, special things going on. But as far as churches go, it's just Grace with Santa Elena.
And last year, we actually, or was it last year, the year before, we actually visited another church that doesn't have a partner, and they were hoping to get a partner. So we got that extra bonus, I think.
Yeah.
We spend about 2.5 days in the village, and they are jam-packed while we're there. We do a lot of activities with the kids. If school is in session, they will stay home from school while we're there so that they can do things with us. So a lot of arts and crafts kind of things with them.
Last visit was during Advent, so the kids put together little manger scenes with little animal figures and paper. It was quite a project.
Here we often soccer or wiffle ball, hula hoops. We've brought those before. They took us down to the river to swim. We didn't swim, but we did wade in a little bit.
Yeah, Carly joined right in.
So we also attend a church service, It's always a special church service because not only are we there, but Pastor Karen comes and she's the president of ELOG to preside, or she does the service. And so when we're there are generally all sorts of things going on in the same service. Baptisms, oftentimes more than one. First communions, sometimes a wedding. I think the weddings of just one or
There was one wedding,
Yeah.
that last time, yeah.
Yeah, and then members of our delegation will do the readings, and then we'll usually sing a hymn, and we try to sing in Spanish, and it's typically at least a 2-hour service.
So while we're in the village, we bring activities to do with them, but then they also have things planned that they want to share with us. So in Guatemala, there are, I think, 27 Mayan languages spoken. In Santa Elena, the language they speak is called Quechua. So here they were trying to teach us some Quechua. And it's a translation process, right? Because it's Quechua, and then someone translates it to Spanish, and then Spanish to English. But they were sharing that with us. There is a school in the village, kindergarten through 6th grade. Several times when we've been there, school's in session. Like I say, the kids from our congregation will stay out of school so they can do things with us, but we do get a chance often to visit the school. The teachers kind of tell us what they've been working on. The whole class was lined up to say hello.
The one thing about Spanish versus Quechua is there's no similarity whatsoever between the two. You can kind of figure out some words between English and Spanish, but between Spanish and Quechua, I don't have any clue how they speak those two languages, because they are so incredibly different.
And many people in the village don't speak Spanish, especially a lot of the women do not, because they typically do not have as much schooling as the men do. So sometimes the men will speak Spanish, and the kids often speak Spanish. They are learning that in school now. Here they were trying to, corn tortillas are a staple in their diet. And so they were showing us from scratch how they make it. So taking the corn off the cobs, so they were teaching us how to pull it off with our fingers, which was super difficult. And then they made us a lunch. Here it was a chicken and squash soup, and like I said, always mini tortillas.
And I notice here, the meat isn't very common, but when we go there, they had chicken, and that was a real generosity. So one of the important lessons that we learned is to receive the generosity and also be open to the learning, for whatever they have to teach us. We're not there to fix anything. We're there to build a mutual relationship of respect and support. There we go, okay. So other activities in the village can include Bible studies, attending a council meeting, visiting people in their homes, viewing new gardens. We got to hear howler monkeys when we were there and see them in the trees, which was pretty cool too.
And then the time in the village goes pretty fast. Like I said, it's 2.5 days. We have a lot of activities and sharing, and here we are leaving, so.
And we don't stay in the village. A lot of the other churches, the villages have created kind of dormitory areas for when their visiting congregations come, but we stay about a half hour away in a hotel.
Yeah, that's a good point. We travel back and forth to a nearby town each night.
Just one thing I remember from our trip with the first congregation that we went to, when we got there, one of the people, and I don't think they were a member of the church, but one of the men there is building a very large house in the area, and he asked Pastor Karen to
Bless it.
yeah, to bless the home. But then he also shared with me that his hope is once the home is built, and he just had some real visions for the future, that he would be able to build a boarding area where we might be able to stay. And I thought that, or, you know, whoever comes to visit would be able to stay, and I was touched by that.
Could I add just some color because I found it so interesting? It was prior to our visit to Guatemala that we heard the stories. Linda Lichty might have been on one of those trips where they stayed in the village, but they stayed in the homes, which meant that our delegation was sleeping where the people were normally going to be sleeping. And it was also a difficult situation, like to accept that generosity when you saw how you were really putting them out. But also, it's a culture at that point in time that was so different and foreign. My son tells the story about being on, I think he was sleeping on a bench, but a rooster fell off and fell. Do you remember the story? Was that when you were on the trip?
No, I have my own rooster story.
So anyway, I thought it was really interesting. I also remember Patty Matthews talking about being with her husband, and they were sharing a bench so nobody slept because it just wasn't, wide enough for people of our stature and experience to be comfortable sleeping. And that was also before there was a road that brought, quote, our bus or our, in. So there was a walk of, a half a mile or something. But anyway, it's come a long ways. Now there's electricity with, refrigeration and everything in this village. So
Yeah, not everybody in the village has electricity, but there is electricity at the church, and then there are a few other homes. There's a small little convenience store, I'll call it, that has electricity.
And they always find a way to charge their phones, because that's what they live by, is they got their cell phones and they figure out a way to charge them.
I think a lot of the kids have phones too, didn't they, if I remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, the hotel that we stayed at was about half an hour away from where, from the Santa Elena.
And have really good
I can wait. I see you got more slides.
So a couple other destinations that we often get a chance to visit. In addition to the congregations that ELOG serves, they also operate the Milagro Women's Center, which is a spot in Guatemala City where young women from the rural communities can come, and it's kind of like a boarding school. They live there, they get an education beyond the 6th grade that would be offered in their village, and then they also have the opportunity to learn some trade and business skills so that they could start their own business and help support their families, and then they take that information back to their villages.
I thought it was amazing. I think this was the young lady that was going into engineering, was it? I mean, so some can choose to like, they might start a new business. I think somebody in the past had started a bakery. One of the students was learning tailoring and sewing skills. But really, it seemed to me, what I was gathering is their talents, can take them where they want to go. And I just thought that was incredible for lifting women up and empowering them.
And I think women have been, women have been less marginalized, yes. And so it's, but they're doing a lot now, especially like with this Milagro, doing a lot to help give women the skills and help them.
To be more than just to go home and have babies.
Right.
Better or June.
Yeah.
because it's too young. Yeah.
I thought the other interesting thing about that too is they talked about transitioning back to their communities, because after coming to the city and then learning everything that they have and moving back, that would take an adjustment.
Just one other thing, unless you already said it and I was
I shouldn't have been talking, but I was talking to Carla. It was Carla's fault.
I'm used to taking blame.
Education is only compulsory through 6th grade for girls. Did I miss that? You said that?
It's only compulsory through 6th grade for everybody in Guatemala. But, so like in Santa Elena, the school there goes through 6th grade. And then if they want education beyond that, they need to travel to this nearby town where we stay overnight when we visit. It's called Cantabal, or it has a different name now,
Yeah.
Playa. So anyway, they have to travel to this other town for further education, and they need to pay for that. Families will often do that for the boys in the family, but generally do not pay that for the girls.
Do we know if any of the girls from Santa Elena have been at Milagro?
The year we were there, March, there was a girl that was from Santa. There was one of the group
Oh, that wasn't
was
there
from-
though, because they were on winter break or.
No, because I remember
There were
standing.
only 2 students there that stayed back so that they could feel, kind of talk.
That was
about-
last November when I was there,
Yeah.
but you were there
When I
earlier.
was
you and I
there
were
with
Yeah,
you,
I'm sorry, I forgot.
there was somebody from Santa Elena that was there.
I was thinking you were with us last time.
So here we're going back to now we're back in Guatemala City, and we're at the elementary school, the Colegio Luterana de Guatemala, and they've made a lot of improvements. We were privileged to be able to see the new school as compared to the old school where they were at, which was in danger of falling off a hill or a cliff.
Sliding down the hill, yeah.
So these are some of the new rooms, and we got to meet every single teacher there. They took their time off and met us and talked about their experiences in each of the classrooms. So this is the elementary school, run by ELOG. It's won awards, I believe, that they said, or it's been recognized as a school of excellence. And again, that's in Guatemala City.
And a lot of the fundraising that we do as the St. Paul Area Synod of all of the churches together that have sister congregations, quite a bit of the money ends up going towards anything having to do with education, and a lot of it goes towards this. So if you ever come to our galas or any of those informational things that they have, they show pictures of the construction of this school. And I mean, it was a wreck when they started with it, and they literally do it all themselves. And we've done a lot to try and outfit it, with the desks and the chairs and everything needed. But it's been, it's only been like 4 or 5 years that it's been open, and they have accomplished a lot.
The pictures make it look like a very lovely school, and you say it's a school of excellence. So how are students chosen or selected to attend this school? Is there some sort of criteria that
I don't know that there is. I think it's children in the area. The parents do need to pay
It is a
a
cost.
fee.
Yeah.
It's not a free school, but I think they try to keep it, fairly affordable.
Currently, there's 195 children registered there, and they go from preschool through 6th grade. And
It is interesting, they did say that this was it would be like the inner city, I guess you could say, where you have some of those same inner city problems. And so the teachers do a great job, but, especially as they get older, it seems they face some challenges, along the way during the teaching year.
All those kids walk, some of them up to 2 miles, and many of them after they have helped out at their parents'
farm, yeah.
business or livelihood, which is just, wow. It's mind-boggling how we take education for granted here, public education.
They work hard to go to school.
And they don't want to leave school in the afternoon, we heard. The kids sometimes cry, they want to stay, they love school.
Could you imagine that here?
No. Kids are like,
So the rest of our time in Guatemala, we do get a chance to be tourists and go around and see other parts of the country. We learn some more about the culture in Guatemala. We can appreciate the beauty and the diversity of that place. And as tourists, we're contributing to their economy. Each delegation decides amongst themselves where they're going to visit, and there's several beautiful options there. On this trip, we went to visit some Mayan ruins in Tikal, which are just fabulous. And we had a little jungle walk. There were howler monkeys there as well.
That was in the northern part of Guatemala, so if you remember the shape of it, we're kind of in this corner, so we head north, and then it's flat, where there's the boundary between, or the border between Guatemala and Mexico, but then it's like a boot, and it looks like you go up into the boot.
Yeah, Tikal is way in the kind of the northeast part of the country, so then coming back from Tikal is an even longer journey than getting to Santa Elena.
So we got to go to, and chose to go to Lake Atitlan, which is in the southern part of Guatemala and is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world.
It truly is.
So we have traveled across the lake in those boats, and the lake is surrounded by 3 volcanoes. So like Kathy said, it's just a beautiful place. Then the village that we traveled to was so interesting. They took us to a few different co-ops. One was a textile co-op, so we saw how they dye the yarn or the thread and make a top like what Marge is wearing. Yeah. We went to a honey co-op. We went to a herbal kind of medicinal co-op. Fun little market, and then we also got to ride in some tuk-tuks.
And if you come to the gala, you have the opportunity to buy things from the markets that are there, and at the raffle, we have a lot of Guatemalan items that you could win. So come to the gala.
Deadline is tomorrow.
Yes.
Decide quickly.
It is a lot of fun.
It is fun.
So the last night is spent back at the Lutheran Center, and there we meet as a group, debrief, go over our experience, and talk with Diego and Pastor Karen, and then we head home the next day.
Now Melissa, did you want to go over some of the logistics of the trip, or do you want Kathy and I to just keep going?
Go for it, I forgot that I was doing that. I thought it was just like window dressing.
She's on vacation, yeah.
So, just some logistics of the trip, kind of what to expect, and some of the preparations.
There's a handout at the back.
Yep. It's a 9-day trip. The 2025 trip is scheduled over the District 196 spring break here.
So that is March 21st through the 20th.
We really would like to see some young people travel with us. I'd like to say I'm young.
But she's not.
Sorry.
And people even younger than Kathy, I guess.
That would be me.
Under 60.
She's my older sister.
In past trips, we've had high school youth with us, and they just relate. The children in Guatemala relate so well to having those young people there, so that's good. That's what
People like them, come on in.
Yeah, we would like you to come on this trip.
In Spain.
During this
So generally, the cost of the trip usually averages between $1,700 to $2,000. That includes the airfare. And the final cost is going to depend on how many people travel, and then also whatever fundraising we're able to do ahead of time. We do several fundraising efforts through the year to help offset the cost for travelers.
Yeah, so come to those two.
The next one, other than the gala, is on November 9th for the.
No.
October.
October, we sell.
Von Hansen's.
Brunch.
Yeah,
Von
The
Hansen.
third Von Hansen's.
So the gala in September is a synod-wide fundraiser, and that supports ELOG in general. And then the Von Hansen's brat stand, October 5th and 6th, we're teaming up with Property, and then part of those proceeds will fund some of our Guatemala travel, and the diner at the craft fair in November is what
That's
Cal is
November 9th,
thinking of.
Saturday.
There's another one.
Okay.
What's November?
Some of the expectations, our travel group gets to know each other pretty well, even before the trip. So we meet at least monthly, starting about 5 to 6 months before the trip for team building and planning and learning. So we're currently meeting to talk about some of these plans too.
Yeah, so we need travelers to indicate their interest and sign up and put out a deposit by October 15th. And then that team will be formed and we'll start meeting monthly from there.
You do need a valid passport. And you'll need to go to a travel clinic to see a travel doctor for immunization and medications. It is a malaria area.
Santa Elena is, but Guatemala City is not.
Correct.
So it depends on where you're traveling, you have to let them know.
We want you to know that this is a participatory trip, so you're not gonna come along and just observe. If you're coming on the trip, be prepared to join in to whatever, and sometimes we have to go with the flow. We have things planned, and then we swerve off and do something else, but we will join in a lot of activities. We'll read scripture at the service like you saw on the slide, share devotions on the bus.
We sang on the bus.
And in the service.
And we sang for the members of the congregation too, which was fun. So there's some physical considerations with this. There's a lot of sitting on that bus, especially during, when we're waiting, when construction is going on. Walking over uneven ground, there's gravel, cobblestone roads, so it can be a little bit of rough terrain. You need to be able to handle your own luggage, including stairs. The climate is considerably warmer and more heated than Minnesota, so it will be interesting to see what it's like in March as opposed to late November when we went.
And the climate varies, like in Guatemala City, I think they're at a high enough elevation that it's warm, but it's not so humid. Santa Elena is more of a jungle area, so, think of a 90-degree humid day here in July.
And it was warm when we went, even in November. And Guatemala doesn't have the same regulations around accessibility as we do here in the US.
As we travel, like we said, that when we stay at the Lutheran Center, we're there for several nights. The accommodations there are kind of dorm-style rooms. There's bunk beds in there. You never have to sleep on the top bunk, but you'll share a room with several people and share a bathroom. And then other nights, when we're in the area, we'll stay in a hotel. We'll be sharing a room with somebody. Same thing as we travel to whatever our tourist destination is.
And the hotel is air conditioned.
The hotels are generally air conditioned, true.
Electricity is running.
For the most part, the accommodations are, they're very nice.
And they have flush toilets.
They have flush toilets. We don't always have warm showers.
Yeah, but you don't use any toilet paper in the toilets.
So, in the village, they do not have running water. So when we're there, it's an outhouse, but, yeah.
Very nice one. It's a nice one.
In the village?
Yeah.
I missed the nice one.
Oh, wow.
That was it. It has a door.
Yeah.
And a hole.
Yeah.
Well, no, and it's a cement thing to make it look like a toilet seat. I thought it was quite nice.
Yes, Ron?
Well, my wife and I experienced the same thing in China. and we went to a village that was called the City of Bicycles. And all the people there just
I thought that was all of China.
Yeah, it was all bicycles.
Yeah.
And my wife went to go use the ladies' room, and she comes back and she got this look on her face, and I go, what happened? She goes, well, first of all, there's a lady standing outside the bathrooms, or whatever you want to call it, handing out sheets of toilet paper. I said, oh, really? She said, yeah. She said, then I go in and all there is a big hole in the ground. I said, I guess I'll wait to use the bathroom later. So I know that experience about the hole in the ground.
What if you need more toilet paper?
Italy too.
Oh,
You travel
prepared.
That's the same
Yeah.
thing several places in Guatemala, though. There's not toilet paper in the stall
Right.
that you go into. There's like one on the wall. You take what you need, go in your stall.
Or you think you need.
If you need more, you hope that somebody else is in the bathroom and can hear you say.
Always bring somebody in with you, go in pairs, so then you can holler out, like somebody did, and ask for more.
And some of us just brought a roll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which we did. It's okay, we get it.
And what
Italy too.
Carry a
what
large
they were gonna
purse.
say, started to say over here is, you don't put the toilet paper in the toilet. Right.
No.
And so you have to be willing to fish it out when you make a mistake. And Melissa won the award for the,
No.
oh no, Kathy won the award for the, I knew we were lying.
Old habits are hard
Too
to
much
break.
information.
You don't realize how automatic your toileting is.
Especially like in the middle of the
You're right.
night.
And there's always a
all of
pail
this-
next to the toilet to put it in.
Right.
And I decided I'm not listening to any more men complain
No.
about the inconvenience.
No.
You know,
My lips are sealed.
we talk about frequency where men don't need it as frequently as women.
Well,
If you
you
need
don't have to get
details,
nearly
Ron
as
will
undressed.
explain.
Too much information.
Some of this,
Moving on.
we kind of are laughing about it now, but it's good to note that it's a different culture, it's a different accommodations than what we have here. And so be prepared, I mean, go with that open mind, willing to accept and learn and experience something different. But, to be, the people that we encounter are so gracious and hospitable to us. And so, we just have to know that, like we said at the beginning, we're not going there to try to fix anything. The way they live is beautiful, and we are happy to be able to share some of that.
Sometimes that, the generosity is even overwhelming. And so even in spite of the restrooms and that kind of thing, I think what we take away, what we go back with is just so much, there's just so much.
It's a lifetime experience, and, you have memories for a lifetime, because you have a lot of memories, some of them not always the best, but some of them as beautiful as they can be.
Yeah.
In terms of education to the sixth grade and wanting to go further in terms of education, but the family can't afford it, you were talking about how far they have to go to school or whatever. So is there something, or will there be something set up so kids that want to go further than sixth grade and the parents want them to go further than sixth grade, that will help them, like a stipend or something, that help them go to school?
One of the focuses for the funds raised at the gala, which is 1 week from today, one of the several
Sign up tomorrow.
focuses is scholarships.
Okay.
So that is one way that we can share the bounty that we have, and we all know, I think, that education is such a profound way to improve lives, not only of the individual being educated, but if it's women, and perhaps if it's men as well, but if it's women, it affects families and communities, and especially in Guatemala, where the women are the educators and socializers of their children and of their community. And it's very gendered roles. The men generally are the work in their fields or in their places of work, and the women are the community and the family. So giving to these scholarship funds has a profound impact on an entire community.
The other thing that I think we didn't mention is that there's a whole other area of ELOG involved in learning about agriculture and finding agricultural methods to combat the devastating implications and results of climate change. And so Diego is learning a lot about that and then working with members of the community to bring in some new agricultural practices that, you know, that will allow the people to make a living, so that hopefully the people will want to stay in the communities and empower themselves and be able to make a living where they, you know, where they currently live.
I was gonna piggyback on what Melissa was talking about. With migration now, there's more and more demand for the women to take over a lot of the roles that the men were playing too. And so there, the education and involvement is really important. But migration has been a pretty big factor in how the communities are existing, or how they're handling all the responsibilities.
Does anybody have any other questions, comments?
Maybe talk about if they are interested signing up on the list.
Yeah, so like I said, we need to put together this travel delegation by October 15th. We have our dates set, but we need to get a deposit into the Synod, and then we need to start our planning meetings. So if you think that you're interested in traveling, sign up on the table over there, and then someone from the leadership board of the Guatemala team will be in touch, and we can have a conversation where we can go into more depth about what's involved and answer any other questions and that kind of thing.
One other piece, we talked about this gala. It is the annual fundraiser. Our goal this year is 100,000. We met that last year. Did we hit 100?
We did, for the last couple of years.
It was met during pandemic times.
Yes, it was.
And it was quite a bit over last year too.
So if you or someone you know might be interested in this, there is a link on the Synod website to sign up. Tomorrow is the last day for that, so please come and support the Guatemala ministries.
And you learn a lot more about the whole synod in Guatemala and all the churches that are supported and all the other programs. You know, they have healthcare workers that are educated. They have 2 different schools opportunities. They have people that train in being ministers. You know, they have a lot of educational things going on. So.
Side note about the Guatemala Gala that I'm kind of excited about is that a chef that has appeared on PBS talking about our Guatemala culture and Guatemala
Chef Amelia.
Chef Amelia,
Yeah.
will be cooking for us at the gala, and I'm pretty psyched about that.
She will be cooking.
She's not, it's her recipes.
Her recipes are
Okay.
Yeah, she's not making food for 200 people, sorry. But it's her recipes that are all.
Thank you for the correction on that.
And if you have TPT passport, you can go on, she was on Relish with Chef Yi.
Those are good. Yeah, she's been on quite often, so. But, good. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice. Maybe we have to all go out and talk to a few more people in the congregation, because we, like you said, would love to see some new people, especially some of those younger people, to enjoy and work at this.
Yeah, we had 4 younger teens when I was the trip I went to, and they add so much, and the kids love it, because, they're out there playing soccer and
Yeah.
baseball and all this stuff with them, and
Kids in the village.
yes.
Sometimes the adults do that too.
Yep,
Yeah, I was a really good watcher.
playing soccer with the kids. And, yeah.